Recording is on.
All right. It told me that it's recording.
Oh, yeah.
Did you hear that?
Sure did.
All right. So this is, well, introduce yourself.
I'm still trying to get my stuff set up here.
Oh, okay.
Not quite ready.
Just so you know.
Oh, yeah. It told me. Definitely did.
Yeah.
I got to confirm this number
Adam
57.
Carlson. His name is Adam Carlson. I do know that much about him.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yep. Born in Duluth, Minnesota. Spent a lot of time there before moving to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where my dad was a tribal member for the Ojibwa Band of Chippewa Indians up here. And he and my mother, sadly, both passed away. So I am living in their house right now. And, yeah, that's where I am at the moment.
Yeah, and we've known each other since I was probably in 7th grade or something like that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think it was, we first met each other in the Talent Search, as it was called, youth group, the program, which is sort of like the part of the trio program. They've got like it got dark in your room. What's going on? Is this Adam After Dark?
Nope, I'm setting up my recording.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, it's probably too bright where I am right now because there are no curtains at this moment.
I didn't turn the light on in front of me, so yeah, I'm working off natural light, so it's going to get darker as we go.
Yeah, I think I want to talk about. There was this one time we went on a road trip. Do you remember that? And we sang a Ramones song.
We went on a lot of road trips back in the day.
Do you remember we sang "I Want to Live" by the Ramones?
Oh yeah.
It was like a moment from a freaking movie or something. I remember that pretty well.
Yeah, when I had that '82 Ford LTD, that thing was a boat. We used to just head on out to a lot of different places, and we'd fill up that car with as many people as we could.
Oh yeah, back then we were like social butterflies, or it was like crazy. Like some people wouldn't even believe how much more social I was back then.
Yeah, it was a weird time. I don't talk to almost anybody these days, but back then it was constantly going and doing and, you know, let's meet here, let's do this. And it was just so strange compared to today.
I know.
And this has nothing to do with COVID or anything like that and, you know, social distancing. This is basically just me not hanging out with people.
Yeah, yeah. I've always been a bit of a lone wolf, but I'm definitely, like, some people think that if you're that way, it must mean you're shy, but I'm not shy.
No.
I'm not. In fact, I should be more shy than I am, if anything. Like, I'm a little too not shy about things.
But yeah, we've been friends for a long time. We've done a lot of stuff together. I used to head over to your place, and sometimes I'd crash over. We'd watch horror movies or something. Yeah. We used to go and do some trivia up in the city, and I think we won a couple times, but overall mostly losses. But that's how trivia goes. Yeah. Sometimes you know the answers, sometimes you don't.
Well, I'm wondering what this is completely unrelated to what we were talking about just now. But what are your thoughts on the Rob Zombie Monsters movie trailer?
I don't know why people are so obsessed over what the cost was to make it. That seems to be like such a hot topic.
It does look like it's cheaply made, kind of.
Well, it's for Netflix, right?
Yeah.
And it's it's not going to be a massive budget thing. It's going to be something they try to turn a profit. And
I think Rob Zombie often goes for the cheaply made aesthetic anyway. That's my understanding of. He probably even
for his own horror movies, it fits the aesthetic. But when he tried to do that with a lot of the Halloween movies, I don't think it really worked in a way that he anticipated.
Yeah.
Because for that, you kind of need that clean Hollywood aesthetic, where people look at it and be like, this is a Hollywood feature.
Yeah, there were some aspects of, I'm not a hater of the Rob Zombie Halloween movie. I'm not. I see it as a completely different movie altogether, so I try to distance it from the original. But I can see
Right.
why some people don't like the whole. I mean, it's a very white trash kind of movie, actually. Like it puts Michael Myers in that type of household where he's being abused and being bullied and whatever. Whereas in the original, Michael Myers is just more of a mysterious figure. Like
Right.
they even call him the Shape because he's sort of just an evil force. I guess almost like Jaws in a way, or the Blob perhaps. Just
I don't think a lot of horror villains need that kind of, humanization to where the viewer kind of pities and understands where the killer is coming from.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessary for a lot of movies, unless that's one of the major twists to it that you're working on.
Yeah.
To me, that's a little too much, trying to be a little too artsy.
It can be. It can be. I mean, I guess if you're looking for sort of a psychological angle to it, and to add some depth and a psychological exploration of the killer, that
Right.
can be interesting. But it really needs to be done well. And I think it was actually done okay in the Halloween movie that Rob Zombie made, but I can see why for some people it was a major stumbling block.
Oh yeah, but by meeting you and hanging out with you, I got introduced to a lot of new music, which I still listen to quite a bit of that today.
Oh yeah,
on the Spotify playlist and things like that. So that's been real cool. We've had some epic road trips where things that happened on some of these trips would never fly today.
Oh yeah, like what?
Like when we made that road trip down to Milwaukee, and I tried booking a hotel for that night because we had no plans of really going, so we didn't have a hotel or anything. But I booked a room and we went, and they had booked it for the next day. And so what we did was we complained a bit until they upgraded us to a hotel that we had no business being in. We're walking around in like sweatpants and our clothes are in garbage bags and stuff like that, and we're walking through this 5-star hotel just looking like we absolutely had no business being anywhere near that building.
Oh yeah. I kind of remember. I think that was your sister who was persuasive in that.
Oh yeah, she was with us. Right?
She knows how to get things done.
She can. She's got a little bit of her dad in her. I don't have that fiery side of my dad that she got. I got more of the insane amount of patience that my mom had. So
I've got some of my dad's anger, and I try to control it.
Oh yeah. When I was younger, I used to have a real bad temper. I would flail and beat kids up, and one day on the way home from the school, our bus would stop at this little store called Roddy's, and there was a kid that made me mad, and so as a kid that watched a lot of wrestling, I took him and I pile-drived him on the pavement, blood everywhere. It's like,
oh my god!
At that point, I couldn't ride the bus, so I realized that I was causing so much trouble that I had to kind of tone things down.
Yeah.
So impulse control can be so hard. I still don't have impulse control when it comes to a lot of parts of my life, especially as you can probably tell from, if you are seeing me, I'm a larger man. That portion control for food, especially the tastier food, oh, it's tough. It's real tough.
When I went to the gas station, I got a big gulp, as you might be able to see here.
That is a big gulp.
Yeah. In my defense, that's going to be for later today and maybe for parts of tomorrow as well. But who knows? Maybe I'll drink it all tonight. I don't give a fuck. You only live once. Well, it's actually Pepsi. The Cherry Coke was actually out.
Oh.
So I had to get something else. And I'm not a Pepsi hater, so I went ahead and got Pepsi anyway.
Yeah, I come from a Coke household, so
yeah,
it's weird when people say Pepsi for everything. Like, yeah. When I go through the Taco Bell drive-thru and I get a drink, got to look at that and say, like, what is the least bad Pepsi thing on the list?
Yeah. Well, for a lot of people, that'd be Mountain Dew.
See, I don't mind the original Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
But it's when you get into that Baja Blast stuff, people love it, but I don't. It just doesn't taste good to me. I don't get it.
I think it's an acquired taste in a lot of cases.
I've tried the regular. I've tried the zero. I try to drink the zero if I can, but it's it's just a struggle sometimes when people don't have what you want.
Oh yeah, I've known people who have lost weight because I shouldn't say people. There's this one person who lost some weight because and part of that is he's drinking that sparkling ice stuff now.
Oh yeah,
sort of like the sody pop stuff. And
this
is Ray I'm talking about. Actually, he's quit smoking, and he used to smoke. I wouldn't say he smoked like a chimney, but he was definitely a person who smoked quite a bit, and he stopped. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. I've never been a smoker, so I don't have to deal with that. But my mom smoked a lot every day, and as far as what that does to not only the inside of the house, which I've had to wash the walls a couple times, and I still get some smoke residue in here every time. Yeah. But just the sheer cost. I mean, I've been clean sober 10 years now. Yeah. And sometimes I look back and I think, in that 10 years, how much money have I saved by not going out to the bar on weekends?
Oh, yeah.
Or buying a 12-pack. That's a valid
question. And I quit smoking myself early on in high school because I had a few corrupt cousins who got me into it. But I got in trouble because I stole some cigarettes from my mom's purse.
Yeah.
I was a little hellion on a few instances. Of course, I denied it up and down at the time. But my mom knew it wasn't my brother, Ryan. I mean, you could criticize Ryan about this or that, but he's not the type of dude to steal some smokes.
No, that is definitely not within his character, at least not back when I knew him.
Yeah. So I got in trouble for that, and that was kind of the little slap on the wrist I needed. And, I also have to, like, if we're looking back at bad things we did when we were kids, like when I was in high school, there was this jock kid.
Yeah.
Well, he was like the school's biggest jock, and one of my high school classmates dared me to jump on his back, and I did. So that was me being like, I guess a rebel type or whatever. But I guess part of that too is you want to impress people,
right? And
especially if you're a little bit on the shorter side, like I'm 5'6". A lot of people think I'm weaker than I am.
Oh yeah, I can see that being
and especially like you kind of have to prove yourself, like you would if you're going to prison or something, and you're not like a big burly dude or whatever.
Well, you're ingrained for when you're young. Yeah. As far as this whole, you've got to make a really good first impression. You got to let people know who you are, and it's weird that you kind of have to approach some of these situations with such a grandeur that you want to leave this mark on people and have them be like, oh, well, I would like to see that person again. They were fun and entertaining and smiling and complimented me. And it's that whole part of that thing is what elevates people to not be genuine, not be themselves, because they want to leave that positive mark on people. Yeah. And I'm all for making friends, but I'm not going to make friends at the expense of, I won't say being real, because that saying gets way overdone in today's world, but just being yourself. Yeah. Because I'll admit, sometimes back in the day, I used to change my personality based on who I was hanging out with, and I didn't really care for that one bit. I stopped doing it.
I think that to some degree, in certain circumstances, you kind of have to do it. And the weird thing, like, not to be too, not to argue against your point here, but I think that, after the whole COVID thing, like, people have gone kind of apeshit crazy in some ways, and maybe maybe more people should be a little bit like that. Like they should be mindful of first impressions and just being normal, I guess. Because I used to think, I mean, the weird thing about like 2020 and all this stuff is I used to have a pretty negative self-opinion, but now I'm finding out that holy crap, I'm actually like way better than a lot of people out there. You know what I mean? So oddly enough, as shitty as this situation has been, it's actually almost increased my self-esteem.
Yeah, today's society, looking at what's going on with everything kind of falling apart around us, with so many issues being so dividing, it's hard to take a look at the society and number one, try to figure out where you fit, especially if you're sort of a moderate of sorts. Because if you're not part of either extreme, you're left out
Right now, you literally have to remind people that, hey, we shouldn't be burning witches.
Right.
Because there are some actual, like, theocratic lunatics out there who are like, let's burn witches.
Yeah.
Like, you can even, I'm not making that up. You can find the video clips. There's this pastor named Greg Locke who's like, he's like, there's witches in my audience and stuff like that. Wow. So I don't know. It's a crazy world. And people should be just toning it down a little bit, you know, like maybe let's not burn people alive and stuff.
Yeah, let's just not do that.
Yeah. It's kind of a refreshing, you know, spin on a classic to say, hey, I'm not going to pour gasoline on this person or set up a bundle of wood and like, or crucify them or whatever, you know. Maybe I took us off track with all these talking points, but I just wanted to get that out there. I've actually talked about witch burning a time or two on this podcast. I keep wanting to call it a blog too because I'm so mixed up. I've run blogs that nobody reads, and blogging and that very few people will listen to. So I get them mixed up.
I'm recording another podcast today that not many people are going to listen to. But you know what? I've been doing that one for years and years, so I'm okay with that one not getting popular.
Yeah, but if you want to talk about what you do a little bit here, that'd be fine too.
Well, I'll tell the whole story.
Yeah,
I was working at a casino, and I loved drinking, man. Drinking every day. As much as I could, I'd go out, I'd get blackout drunk, and I would just, you know, that was my goal, make it through the day and go drinking. Well, as I said earlier, I'm 10 years sober now, but back then, that sort of behavior cost me my job because I would show up and I wouldn't be drunk when I showed up, unless it was from the night before, but I would definitely not respect my job the way that I should. And it resulted in me getting fired from a managerial position, and it hurt.
Oh yeah,
that sort of financial thing. So I ended up not being able to afford my apartment anymore.
Oh, yeah,
I ended up, you know, my girlfriend at the time. Things at that time it didn't work out. So, I mean, I had to move back in with my family, and I was struggling. When a small community like where I live gets a hold of what's been going on with you a little bit, it makes it hard to get a job because everybody talks. Everybody talks. And I applied for several jobs, and I wasn't even hearing back on the first interview, and it was really starting to frustrate me. At that point, I decided I've got to do something. I'm sitting at home. Even if I'm not making money, I've got to do something.
Yeah.
Because I was just going absolutely insane with my mind. So I decided to apply to write for a Vikings fan site. That it was a hobby job, no pay. So I ended up applying, and I got denied the first time. I was like, well, this is not great, you know. All I wanted was something to kind of not make me go insane. So I decided that I wanted to try something different, and it didn't work out. Well, I waited about a couple months, and I saw the ad run again. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try again. That time I ended up applying, and I did get accepted. And I had a nice person above me when I was working for the Viking Age early on named Dan. Dan, he didn't really take me under his wing, but he worked hard to lead by example in a way that, you know, would get views for the sites and would help things kind of develop in some way. Yeah. So I worked under Dan for a while, and it was only I'd say maybe 6 or 7 months before Dan ended up disappearing. We had no clue what happened with Dan. Wow. So the fan sided, they reached out to me and they said, hey, we need someone to take over the site. Well, he's gone. Would you be willing to do that? At that point, I was still a newbie. Didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to turn down a promotion, especially one where I can get paid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, well, yeah, I definitely have to do this because I don't have a job. I need some money. I'm living on my sister or my parents' couch, wherever I can actually sit down and rest for a while. So, yeah, I think I'll take a job where I'm getting paid. So, at that point, Dan came back a couple weeks later. It was apparently a drug issue where he went on a big bender. And he came back and we worked in the site together. And then he ended up disappearing again. And I'm not sure what happened that time, but I never heard back from him again after that.
Wow.
I follow him on Twitter, but I never really reached out to say, hey, what's going on? Yeah. I probably should have, looking back, because that was probably really rude on my part.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's easy to forget about people. Unfortunately.
Well, the thing was that he wasn't really a friend, He was.
Yeah.
I always thought of him as a coworker, and I didn't think I had that relationship where I could overstep those boundaries.
Yeah.
And then dive into his personal life because I wasn't there before. But
well, anytime you get involved in somebody's personal life, you could be setting yourself up for a problem of your own. True. I mean, that's one of the tricky things about navigating through any type of social situation. But absolutely. I do want to mention that you helped me get involved in professional writing in general because you put a general call out, I think it was on Facebook or whatever, where you were looking for new writers for Undead Walking.
Right.
So I joined that. And I don't want to give you exclusive credit because obviously I had to prove myself there and I got additional gigs on top of that. But you're really one of the main reasons I got into the whole professional writing thing.
Well, you'd been writing long before I spoke up anything about Undead Walking, which was an interesting story as well because at the time, Fansided had no intention on starting a website based on The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
It had just started up. It was maybe 2 seasons in, and they put out a call with a big list of TV shows that were popular at the time, saying, is anyone interested in starting a site based on any of these? Or if you have a suggestion, let me know. Well, I sent in the suggestion, and it took maybe 2 days before they had a website set up, and I was just flying through trying to set up as many articles as I could to just get things rolling. And at that time, I was trying to get us a little bit of a staff under me to be able to keep the site running and have content flowing. And I enlisted as many of my friends as I could, but you're the only one that really ended up sticking by.
Yeah.
So that was nice. And since you already had that writing experience and you have, I won't say maybe unique is fair. You have a unique view when it comes to some kinds of horror stuff because you don't really, you're not content looking at the face value of horror. You try to understand a little bit deeper on levels as to how and why.
I probably come off as pretentious for doing that too, or overly analytical, but whatever. I figured, even looking at it from a professional perspective, the way I see it, that's why I'm getting paid to do that to begin with.
Right.
To be a bit of a pretentious, person, I guess.
It's a hard line to cross between being knowledgeable and being pretentious.
Yeah.
It's all about presentation.
Yeah.
Well, I've worked with people who had themselves above their content on way too many occasions.
Oh yeah, one of the reasons I didn't actually work at Reenskrant, let's just call it Reenskrant.
Right.
Switch the letters around, is because I got hired there and they wanted me to act like I was a fan of Dragon Ball Z, but I'm not a fan of Dragon Ball Z. And right. I wasn't going to pretend that I am. So I actually applied a little bit of ethical standards, and in a way, it kind of screwed me over. But you want to have a little bit of professional integrity, and not to pretend you're a fan of something that you're not. It would have been a lie, basically.
And when I was working at the casino, even before I got fired, I wasn't enjoying my work, and I know a lot of people don't enjoy their work. It's a job. You're going to get paid. But if you do something you actually care about, it makes the job so much better. And
It
for
does.
me, I was already getting paid to write about the Minnesota Vikings, which is something I was going to pay attention to anyway, and that I absolutely love. And then when I added The Walking Dead to that, something else that I was really getting into and really loving at that point,
Yeah.
it didn't feel like I was working or pretending in any way. I was just presenting and talking about what I love. And when I tried to make the move over to the fan-sided news desk, they'd give us pieces that we had to write about, and the Summer Olympics was a drain for me.
Yeah.
Because I had not really watched the Olympics much before that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Maybe when the Dream Team were playing back in the day. But I mean, yeah, writing about stuff that you have no passion for,
It can be tough.
it's really tough.
A lot of people don't understand that about writing, is that it can actually be really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not only should you be interested in what you're writing, but you have to also at least try to write it in a way that could sustain interest in others. And not everyone can do that, you know?
Well, if I write an article for someone who's a big fan of Simone Biles, right?
Yeah.
And they're reading this, and I don't know anything about Simone Biles. I'm only typing in what I find on a wiki search.
Yeah.
These people who are experts in everything Simone Biles,
You're gonna call
they're
it
gonna
BS.
know. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what like I wrote for pophorror.com, I wrote an article on this one scene in A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 where this like robotic hand comes out of a piece of paper and attacks this girl. I can't remember her name. I think her name is Sheila, the character's name.
Right.
Like grabs her face. I wrote an entire article on that. So that's pretty nerdy stuff right there.
It is. And the thing is hardcore viewers, hardcore lovers of Nightmare, they're going to love that content.
Probably.
But when you websites don't want to appeal to a niche audience. They want to appeal to
usually.
a big general audience. And honestly, I think that sometimes the way they go about things by having specialized websites and then having an umbrella website that covers everything, maybe they shouldn't spend so much time working on covering things that their specialty sites do and focus on some of the other things that are going on around the world and let your specialty sites take care of things. That should be your home for this kind of content.
Well, you know what's interesting that I've learned, because I also write for Show Snob, that site, but I'm able to write a lot about different things in the world. Like there's a show called Inside America's Toughest Prisons.
Oh yeah,
I'm very bad at remembering the names and titles of things, but I was able to talk about the prison system by covering that show. I've written about serial killers and the criminal justice system. It
is so weird because I've written about TV game shows. I've written about Lizzo for the Viking Age.
Lizzo. I do know who that is. I'm not so out of touch that I don't know who that is.
It's amazing what you can branch out to.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I've branched out a little bit too far on a few occasions. And I go back and look at some of those articles and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking?
Now, were you a fan of the Lost in Space show before you started covering it?
No, but I assumed that maybe I would like it. I'm actually not really writing that much for Show Snob right now. Like I haven't been doing recaps.
Right. Because
my life has just been, I don't know, I've just lacked initiative lately for whatever reason. But I assumed that I would enjoy Lost in Space, and it's a pretty good show.
Because it's kind of cool when something can come along and you can kind of just really enjoy it the way that you want to. And I felt that same way when Fear the Walking Dead picked up. First couple seasons of that were kind of dull. Then the second half of season 2 started coming. It was real good. Season 3. Now I'm at the point where, and I probably shouldn't even admit this, but I'm not caught up on Fear the Walking Dead. I don't even.
Yeah.
I'm
behind on everything.
After the latest major plot development in that show, I have just been out. Like it changed the whole show for me, and I'm not feeling it the way I used to. And I'd love to, because what hurts is when you have a show that has a really talented cast, or a really talented or a really amazing premise, and the other parts of the show just don't match up, and you're left with, oh boy, this show could have been really good if they would have taken a little bit more time to develop this.
Oh yeah.
Or, you know, these actors are really trying their best to carry this show, and it's just not working.
Yeah, that is unfortunate when that happens. And of course, you know, going back to movies, that's another problem with certain film franchises. Like, I look at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, and Part 3 is surprisingly good, but holy shit, does Part 4 suck? Like, that movie is just terrible.
I feel like the horror genre is a unique place among films, because you don't need to do what you need to do in a lot of other types of movies to have a successful horror film or franchise. I mean, if you put out a movie today, it's either got to be the most interesting premise in the world with great advertising behind it, or it's got to star a major Hollywood name. For people,
or hey, in the 1980s, if you had boobs on you know, promised to viewers, they would tune in, they would watch it.
And even in today's horror, there are movies that have absolutely no name actors in it.
Yeah,
and it can put forth a story, especially in the Indian international horror. I've watched so many really good Italian or Japanese or Chinese horror movies that just makes you watch the movie and you're like, I don't know who any of these people are, but wow.
Oh yeah. Well, have you ever seen The Piper? That's a movie I recommend to people all the time. That's a Korean movie. I don't even remember the director's name, and I feel bad about that. It almost makes me seem racist, but I'm just bad with names, as you know.
I
think that's already been established here on this podcast. I really suck at names. But definitely, it's a retelling of the Pied Piper of Hamelin legend. Only it incorporates, you know, parts of Korean history, including the war at the time.
Yeah,
and it's impressive because it combines all these different story elements, and it makes the far-fetched, you know, legend of the Pied Piper almost seem like it could have happened. You know, that's a story where he plays a pipe and he throws these mice down a trail, and it ends up being
also rats story in this one, or is it a different take?
Yeah. So, well, that was some dead air. I don't know. Do you have anything else you would like to say, or? I think we've recorded basically an episode length.
The only real thing that I'd like to add is that if you have a friend who is working on a writing job or a podcast or anything where even an Etsy store or something like that, where you could help them out, you don't have to buy something, you don't have to donate money, you know, just click on an article or give the podcast a listen. Just share it on your social media and be like, hey, my friend does a podcast
and walk away. You don't even have to listen to it. Turn the volume down, walk away, go do the dishes.
And my friend has a podcast where he ranks all the different flowers that he has in his garden. It's weird, but check it out, you know?
Yeah.
Just throw that out there, and you never know what that kind of support can do for someone who is trying their best to get by or get off the ground a little bit. You could be that person that helps them get to where they need to go, even if it's just putting a couple extra dollars in their paycheck, and it costs you absolutely nothing.
Well, I call that cappuccino money, because that's what some of it really is. It's just for those added expenses, you know, because a lot of us, like, I think some people think writers are rich or something. Like, a lot of us are not.
Right.
Some of us are poorer even than the average dumbass out there flipping burgers or whatever, you know, or at least making as much as that, you know. But like you said, it's a good idea to actually click on an article every so often. I get annoyed when people just click like on it when it's on social media.
I mean, that helps.
Yeah,
I do appreciate that.
It does, but it's nice to have people actually read stuff. And, if you know any type of creative person, definitely look into their at least give it a chance,
Right, and it's even more so with people that create physical content because, man, I know that you've looked into selling T-shirts and things like that at times, and that's not an easy gig. It's not.
No, you have to promote the hell out of it, and you've got a lot of competition. And even if you have a good idea, you're not guaranteed any type of success.
But yeah, you should want your friends to succeed. So anything you can do to help them, it doesn't even cost you anything.
Well, here's what gets me about like my musical career, such as it is, which is non-existent, right? I actually do have some good music.
You do.
A lot of people wouldn't know that because they don't even ever check it out. And it's frustrating because you don't want to whine about it, but you kind of do at the same time.
Right.
Because it is frustrating. It's like, well, if you were a creative person, wouldn't you want people to occasionally check this out? Especially if they're like close buddies of yours.
Right.
Like if it's somebody really close, you would think, well, wouldn't this person at least check it out occasionally?
And also, if it's a style that you don't typically listen to, let's say that you're a big fan of modern hip hop.
Yeah.
Which right now, I'm not a huge fan of the modern hip hop scene, but there's some good stuff out there.
Yeah.
But if you were to give your music to a person that listens to almost exclusively hip hop, I don't think they'd be a big fan. But you know what? They could still listen to it. And they could find aspects of it and rhythms and beats that they might enjoy. And it's not like a lot of other media where it's like a picture and you're like, well, this person, their drawing style isn't for me.
Yeah.
Music can be that way, but it's the way you look at it that can change the whole way. I mean, when you look back at art and you see so many different ways of doing art, for a while there, I was obsessed with pointillism.
Yeah.
Like absolutely obsessed. And now I've moved on, and I looking at some of his impressionist stuff, and it's like, that's really interesting too. Yeah. And at the time, I would not have even given a lot of that a second look. So, I mean, you can take bits and pieces of what you enjoy, you can apply it to other things, and that can amplify even more if you can use that to support someone that you care about. Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned as a musician, as a creative person in general, I'm actually a little less critical of music now because I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of, or not even on the receiving end, but I think about what somebody might say negatively about this thing I've made. You know what I mean? I'm just a little more aware of, being sensitive. It's not to say I always succeed. Like, I'll just say that an Ed Sheeran song sucks. And
but my last question for you that I really need to know is how disappointed do you get when someone that is very important to you does not take the opportunity to support you in what you do?
Yeah. It can be crushing.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't think they even know what they're doing.
Artist.
I don't think that person even knows that by not sharing or liking or commenting or clicking on a link every once in a while, I don't think they know how much something like that can mean.
Exactly.
Someone who's struggling so hard.
Yeah. It's I hate to get this dramatic about it, but it might even help reduce the chances of that person committing suicide or whatever.
It's true.
Now, I'm philosophically against suicide, so I'm not saying that as something I'm threatening to do, to get more people to take interest in my stuff. But, I'm just saying.
You hit the nail on the head, though. I mean, it can be so depressing and frustrating when not only are you not getting any response from the outside world, but the people that you've grown to care about and respect over the years just aren't willing to take that small opportunity to help and support you. It hurts.
It can, yeah. Well, on that positive note, I think we do have enough material here
Okay.
And I think it was good talking to you.
Absolutely.
I think we can do this again at some point. Not sure when. But
I like that idea.
Yeah. And maybe we can have a few more topics so we don't hammer these same points again next time, you know?
Oh, no, same show. We'll just record it and call it Groundhog Day. Put it out again.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess I'll just say have a nice day and don't be afraid to visit every so often.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, reduce that lone wolfishness. I just made that word up, but I kind of like it. But anyway, have a nice day.
Oh, you too. Take care, man.
I'm going to find out how to turn off the record button here. What is that? Oh, that's leave the meeting.
Same buttons and stop recording. Boom.
Okay.
Are you sure you would like to